Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast. Hello, Ben. How are you?
G'day, mate. G'day, mate. We can't go there, can we? We just, was it 11 straight losses for you against in the Derby. And, well, I went again. I showed up to give my support to the black and white and we lose again. So I don't know what to do.
Don't go. No, I'm disappointed. I thought we were better than that. So that's I'm enjoying.
We still stand by our teams. We still love them. We're supporting the boys in their difficult hour.
Yes,
we'll get around them.
So good luck to everyone else who's having teams that are winning because we're not. Hey, Ben, do you know that our audio book is ranking number one on Amazon at the moment? So that's it's nice for us, but a shout out to anyone who's gone and got the audio book as well. But there's also an opportunity if you go to thearmchairguide.com.au, you can actually get our book for free. If you pay for shipping. And then there's an opportunity when you go to pay for the shipping, you can actually upgrade to the audio book for $9.95, which is actually cheaper. So if you want a little hack on how to get the audio book a bit cheaper, go and do that. So thearmchairguide.com.au, go and get a free book. We'll send that out to you in the post, and then you'll be able to listen to it straight away, Ben. So, but that was nice. Thank you, Amazon, for letting us know that, and thanks for those folks that have supported it. Today, I'm excited. We got a new framework. Well, it's not a new framework. We're actually diving into an existing framework that we've been chatting about, which will be a bit of fun. But before we get there, today, Ben, finally, the final part of the Win Friends and Influence People. Probably in my top 3 books ever, Ben. It's been fun.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Outstanding.
So I'm just going to give off the final summary for part 3 and part 4. For those just joining us today, haven't been part of the last 30 weeks. I've been sort of summarizing how to win friends and influence people. So here it is. Part 3, how to win people to your way of thinking. Number 1, you can't win an argument. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. 2, a sure way of making enemies and how to avoid it. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you're wrong. 3, if you're wrong, admit it. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Number 4, a drop of honey. Begin in a friendly way. Number 5 chapter is the secrets of Socrates. Get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately. Number 6, the safety valve in handling complaints. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Chapter 7, how to get cooperation. Let the other person feel like the idea is his or hers. Chapter 8, a formula that will work wonders for you. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Chapter 9, what everybody wants. Be sympathetic with other person's ideas and desires. Chapter 10, an appeal that everybody likes. Appeal to the nobler motives. Chapter 11, the movies do it, the TV does it. Why don't you do it? Dramatize your ideas. And chapter 12, when nothing else works, try this. Throw down a challenge. So that was the summary of part 3, which is how to win people to your way of thinking. And part 4 is where we bring it home, how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. Chapter 1 was, if you must find fault, this is the way to begin. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. Chapter 2, how to criticize and not be hated for it. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Chapter 3, talk about your own mistakes first. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Chapter 4, no one likes to take orders. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Chapter 5, let the other person save face. So this is the key, to let the other person save face. Chapter 6, how to spur people on to success. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Chapter 7, give a dog a good name. So give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Chapter 8, make the fault seem easy to correct. Use encouragement, make the fault seem easy to correct. That's the chapter title, and then the call to action, Ben. So that's why it's doubling up. And chapter 9, make people glad to do what you want. make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest.
Wow, mate. That was a series within a series. It's so good. Am I dramatizing it? Is that sort of how I'm dramatizing the idea? Oh, it's just, in all seriousness, if you follow even half of these principles in dealing with people and showing up in your own version of yourself, you are going to be pretty likable. And you're going to have a good amount of influence in terms of where you want to be, and you're going to be, you're going to be good in your skin, right? So I think it is a cracker of a book, and I've really enjoyed you going through it, mate, because I remember reading it, so long ago, and I must admit I quickly moved through it. But this is a reference book. This is a book you have with yourself all the time, because you're okay. I've got this difficult conversation I need to have. Quickly go through that summary and go, oh, that's a good approach. That and because we're all human, we all make mistakes. We have a little bit of some of us have a flight or fight mentality. So this is a way to ground yourself in good approaches. So I think well, what
it's
a
timeless. It was written back in the 30s.
Timeless.
And so here's the deal, folks. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again this week. I have a hard copy of the book. I have a iBooks copy of the book. So, and I reference it often. So it's not a life hack, but it's kind of an early life hack, Ben. Just get a copy somehow and have it as a reference, whichever way you consume. If you're a person who likes to touch the pages, go and buy it. If you're a person who likes to listen to it and have it on call, go and get the audio book. Or if you're someone who wants to have it with you 24/7, go and get it on your mobile device. But just so that the publisher doesn't think I'm stealing all the ideas for no royalties, I want you to go and give the publisher some money, because it's that good. It is a small investment for you to actually live a better life. So there you go. All right, on to today's episode, Ben. Our goal in our community, if you have just joined us, is to help people achieve a passive income. So for those who have been with us since episode 1, you'll see there's been frameworks upon frameworks that have been building. But if you've only joined us recently, that is our mission, to help you achieve a passive income. For some people, it's $2,000 a week. When people come into our business, Ben, quite often they say, I want to achieve $2,000 a week. It's no surprise, because we talk about it a lot here.
Yep.
$2,000 a week. We've put it on our book, $2,000 a week, but it's just a line in the sand, because a lot of people didn't really, in our experience before the podcast and before writing the book, our experience was that not a lot of people were really clear on actually what they were chasing, other than wealth, financial freedom, some of those platitudes that you can wheel out. So we actually wanted to put a line in the sand and say, if you want to have financial peace and you had $2,000 a week and it was coming in whether you got out of bed or you didn't get out of bed, that is the starting point. Now, for some people, they only want 1,000. For some people, they want more. But that is the mission of our podcast, to help people understand what it takes to get a passive income. And really, that means that we say we're a property finance and money management podcast, but really we're a lifestyle design podcast. Because if you nail property finance and money management, ultimately it all leads to lifestyle design and helping you get what you want in life. So our legacy, we hope, is to leave people with a meaningful life through removing any barriers, education-wise, mentally, all of the processes, what you need to do next to enjoying that financial peace. So a couple of episodes ago, so I'm setting this up, Ben. So a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the 4 types of wealth. And they were, just to remind you, number 1 was social wealth, number 2 was financial wealth, number 3 was time wealth, and number 4 was physical wealth. And we obviously talk a lot about number 2, the financial wealth, but we try to scatter as much as we can around number 3, number 4, and try not to get too carried away with the status stuff. So, but within financial wealth, there are 7 grades to help you understand. And we've used the analogy before around, if you go into the karate system, you start with the white belt and ultimately you want to get to a black belt and you know everything in between. It's kind of the same with the grades, that there are 7 grades. And the first one is financial turmoil. The second one is financial survival. The third one is financial consciousness. 4th grade is financial stability. Grade 5 is financial control. Grade 6 is where we hope as a podcast we can help people get to en masse, which is financial peace. And then for some people, they'll get to grade 7, which is financial contribution and being able to give back. So today what we're going to do is, with that as a scene setter, we've got the 4 types of wealth. And then within the financial wealth, there's 7 grades of financial wealth. We're going to focus today on grade 4, which is financial stability, Ben, because that is what we think is the absolute bench or the absolute baseline that we want everyone to be at through listening to this podcast, aren't we?
Yeah, mate. I mean, I think from that point of view, not everyone's, with the grading system, we hope that people don't start in financial turmoil or financial survival, but we hear a lot of those stories where they've had to go and get some professional advice because they've got themselves into debt troubles and they haven't been able to control their spending and control their money. So, the awareness that we normally raise is around that financial consciousness, and people who are listening to our podcast usually know that really financial stability is that starting point. And so getting into talking about things like money management is critical to that story, right? We talk about in our book about sort of organizing and then basically getting in control and then trapping that surplus and then putting that surplus to work in our Make Money Simple Again book. And that really is also about the work that we want to do here on this crusade that we're on around basically teaching people to be better money managers and then ultimately trapping that surplus and making that money work harder for them, right? There's a lot of lazy money out there. And so today's podcast is just going to have a look at some of those things. And for those new to our audience, we're going to talk about some of the features and benefits are associated with some of the things that we use and why we use them in regards to understanding how we can change those behaviors and reset some of those mindsets that we might have and build those habits to allow us to get to where we want to get to. So let's start with the first one, Bryce. What's our big rock in the jar from a money management point of view is our money system. What do we call our money system?
Yeah, it's our Money Smart system. So you've set that up beautifully, Ben. The 4 pillars of grade 4 we're going to talk about here. So the 4 pillars of grade 4, which is financial stability. So the first one is our Money Smart system. Now, no surprises. We've talked about this, but it's really important because if you're not in control of your money, if you don't know what's coming in, what's going out, and how much you got left, you are potentially violating one of the fundamental principles of money management. That is to spend less than you earn, right? So the idea that you can organize and manage your money in less than 10 minutes a month is something that we think is appealing, but at the core fundamental level, it's being able to gather all of the flows within your household to get a handle on where it's at so that you can actually determine what that surplus actually is, if there is any, and if there isn't, you can arrest the situation very, very quickly, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like this in terms of you can't build a house of financial peace on poor foundations. And if you don't know your numbers story in regards to, a good idea of money in, money out, then you can't also then optimize your money performance. So we can do, back of napkin calculations and have a rough idea. And that's pretty much how most people operate. What they do is they see that their savings account is going up. So they think they're pretty good money managers, because they're not insolvent, they're solvent. But we want to push the envelope on that. And the people that take up the challenge are basically saying that they want to optimize their position. And so with a little bit of effort, 10 minutes a month, and it probably takes about an hour to an hour and a half to originally set up your Money Smarts, you then start to optimize. Now, what does optimization look like? It basically says, I'm optimizing towards my financial goals. So I know what I need to achieve. And for some people, that's a deposit for a home. For some people, that's a deposit for an investment property. For some people, that's the down payment for the wedding venue. For others, it's to prepare for having children or prepare for school fees or those types of things. So by knowing those numbers more closely, you have the ability to optimize your money, which means where do I then put that surplus money to work the best for me? And we talk about this in the past, cash on cash returns and and the ability to be able to sensibly leverage into low volatile assets. And that's our journey in terms of property investing. We think that that's a game changer when it comes to sensible money management. We're not saying, where we're also conservative, it doesn't need to be 7 or 10 or 20 properties. It's all about coming back to your point earlier, Bryce, the lifestyle design story, and allowing your financial goals to be intimately connected with your personal goals. And that's why it's also completely different for every household. So the $2,000 a week is the teaser, let's call it, that we put out there, and rightly pointed out. I think you made a great observation when, we've been doing this for 15 odd years in our business and so forth. And so when you sit down with someone and you say, wow, so what is financial freedom and what does the future look like for you? They're like, oh, not sure. And that's why the research also shows that what I want, what I've got today, right? Like I don't want an interruption or disruption on that today. So then the next question is, all right, so do you know how much that is once you've paid off the mortgage? No. Okay. All right. So how much do you need? Do you want to build on that? Because we're all tempted by, the finer things in life. And going back to your point around that sort of, the social wealth and all of that status and stability, that's not so relevant, right? But it is, we are bombarded with all these images of success and freedoms and all of these types of things. So again, aligning that back to that story is really what our money smart system is about. We need to have a money system. We need to have a money system that can help you organize your money, check in on your money, and make sure you're optimizing that surplus. And that is the critical part about getting the fundamentals right. So when we are talking about, this level inside our 7 grades of financial wealth, we're talking about financial stability. If you don't have money controls and you don't have a money management system that is doing that for you, and you don't discover any lazy money, well, you're not really being honest with yourself. I mean, I can go through any household with the level of experience that we've got to basically find opportunities for those households to improve. And in the Money Smart system, one of those great ones is essential versus discretionary. So everyone goes, oh, my grocery bill is $230 a week. Okay, that's $230 a week. How much of that is essential? How much of that's discretionary? What do you mean? Well, it's the grocery bills. Isn't it all essential? Is it? Is it really? Like, is the punnet of ice cream, is the sweets, the soft drink, all of those essential needs, or are they discretionary? Now, we're not having, we're not challenging for some households. They make the choice. No, that's what I want. I'm living. I don't want to be, sort of living on crackers and Vegemite until I'm 55 and then starting enjoying the wealth that I build. So that's true, but understanding that there is potentially some wriggle room on what is essential and what is discretionary, that can have a material benefit for those people who say, I just can't find any spare money in the budget. I just can't find any opportunity to build on that. And that's really what's essential around the concept of bills and spending and the 7-day float, in terms of making people get into, those rituals, those daily habits, and then those monthly habits that we train to in a good money management system. Because a good money management system must be rules-based, and the rules need to be fairly easy to do, right? They don't need to be too complex. And then when you have a platform or a system to help you do that, it just becomes so much easier.
Yeah, Ben, I think the rules-based system that you just talked about is really important. Yesterday, I was down at the local retail store. I live in Torquay, it's no secret, and it's cold down here. So I needed to buy a jacket, right? And so when I buy this jacket at the checkout, this is the visual that I want everyone to sort of land here, is when I'm tapping the card to make that purchase, is it a human making that decision, or is it a spreadsheet making that decision? And it sounds quite straightforward. Clearly, it's a human. But it's important for people to realize that the spreadsheets are not with you at the point of sale when you're making the decision. It's all about controlling the behavior. And I'm very clear that I've provisioned money for that jacket. And I'm very clear how I deal with that at the end of the month, where I allocate that towards the provision. So therefore, I know that I'm swimming between the flags. But that's the important part here is the whole game of money is a behavior game. Because if it wasn't a behavior game, budgets would, every single person who's listening to this, who's ever written a budget would say, yep, at the end of the month, I said I was going to have $50 and I did. But there's got to be people who are listening to this nodding, going, yeah, I've done budgets before that I've put plenty of time and energy into at the time of making it. But at the point of where it really mattered, it was nowhere to be seen. And then I didn't really want to reconcile it at the end of the month because I was too far from it. So this is why, we've said this is a pillar of financial stability, getting this right. The reason that it's important is if you go back to James Clear, which was an episode we did in December 2019, he said it's the habits that you do on a daily basis that get you to your bigger goals, right? So what we're talking about in having this as a pillar is all about habits. How do you make decisions at the time when it matters the most? Because when you're sitting in front of your spreadsheet on a Sunday night, when you're not in the throes of making a transaction, it's easy to stay on budget. But it's when you're in the coalface of a temptation of the marketing that is being thrown at you at 50 messages a minute. That is when it matters, right? So this is why stability comes with this particular pillar around having that money smarts in place. Do you have a system to game your behavior? Do you have a system that when you turn up and you're about to make a spontaneous decision around whether you should or whether you shouldn't, do you have something to lean on that's going to help you when you're at your most vulnerable, when your stomach is hungry, or when you feel like you need something in your world? This is when it matters most. So we're laboring on it, and of course we have a very strong passion towards people doing money smarts, but it is at its core a behavior management system. It's got spreadsheets, it's got rules, it's got numbers, it's got allocations, it's got provisions, it's got all those financial things, but at its core, it's a behavior management system, Ben.
Yeah, well, I think there's a really good message in that. And we talk about spending slippage, and it's not necessarily the big ticket items sometimes that we go over the top on. But when we do go over the top, like if we go shopping for a TV with a budget of $1,000 and we walk out with a $3,000 television, that's material, right? That's going to have a huge impact in terms of, we refer to that as consequential finance, right? That's our internal terminology. And the consequential finance story of that is, how much is that going to push out my retirement, or how much is that going to cost me in terms of that money sitting in my offset saving there, that interest. So going out with a plan, but it happens every week. And so we have the 7-day float, which is the living and lifestyle account. And that's why we separate that money out from the rest of the money in the primary account, because the reality is you don't have that spreadsheet with you. And you want to know how much you've got left on that 7-day float. So that's why it's a separate bank account. And so it's very easy to get on your phone and say, oh, okay, there's $80 left. I'm ready to make this purchase because it's part of the regular spending that I do. I'll give you an example, Bryce. As you know, each weekend I like to get out for a couple of hours. Well, Sunday morning, I wake up and there's not enough milk. So I thought, okay, well, this is my little window to go and walk up, grab some milk and bread before the family wakes up, and we'll have a nice breakfast. So I wander up to the local shop to buy the bread and milk, and I'm in the queue, and there's a particular lady with her young child who's in the queue, and of course, you know what it's always like, that they want anything, and they put all of the fun stuff near the checkout. And so I just observed what was going on here, and the young child, it probably would have been maybe 3.5. There's the what do they call them? The little cars, the something wheels, the little cars that you can buy.
Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels. There we go. Right. So there's this beautifully little point of sale that has all the Hot Wheels on it, right? And so he's asking, Mum, can I have it? Now, what was fascinating about this observation was that they're only like $3.25 or $3.50, right? She's gone, oh, all right, you can have one. Now, as he's taking 90 seconds to pick one out, and we're all waiting in the queue, she's obviously feeling a little bit anxious, so she wants to make, small talk. And so the small talk she made with the cashier was, oh, he's got about, 100 of these at home. And so for me, that's like, okay, you get the child happy as you walk through the checkout, but the joy of that toy, or the that anticipation of that toy is going to last 2 minutes until they get home, and then it's added to the other 100 Hot Wheels cars or whatever that they've got at home, right? And so where's the value in that? And if that's repeated for other things, soft drinks and all of that, that's where the slippage is, right? So for me, it's about, that was not a planned purchase. And in terms of, feeling good about, being able to treat your children, I get it. I'm a parent of a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I know their game, right? And their game is to wear you down. And, and they'll argue and justify why this toy is the most important thing in their life at that moment in time. And if they don't have it, all the kids at school are going to befriend them, and they're going to sit in the corner and start crying, and, and they'll make a TV commercial about the child. Like, I get all the emotional elements of that. But what we're trying to just highlight in just that little story there is, sometimes it's like, look, working on techniques that allow you to sort of say, hey, distraction, or talking about where we're about to go or what we're about to get, which takes their mind away from, this constant consumerization that we've got. And that's the slippage. So there's a good little example, because you don't want to feel like a bad parent. I get it. I mean, I'm Mr. No in our household most of the times, because I'm trying to teach the children basically the value of money. And you don't just walk up into a shop and tap a card and they think that there's just endless amounts of that. You've got to go off and, give away your time to earn money. So I think it's just important messages around sticking to your guns, and these types of tools are about trying to change those habits and behaviours that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and so you've just further reinforced it's a behaviour game,
yep.
Just through that anecdote, which is hopefully what we're trying to reinforce here. And there's a whole range of things that you've talked about that we could go off on a tangent. But isn't it interesting when you look at the documentaries of the chickens who are pecking out of the shells, that if you were to help them get out, it actually sets them up for that struggle is part of the price that you pay to actually survive in life for the chicken. And I've thought about that a bit lately, because clearly my kids, like yours, they see a level of abundance that I didn't have when I was growing up. And I look at those, I look at that, like I wanted a pair of Adidas Roams, Ben, back then. But I could only afford the Adidas Campus, which didn't have the blue bit on the bottom of the shoe, and that was really, really important, right? And I just remember that it just created some desire and some ability to change my behaviour so that I could actually save up the amount of money that's required and delay the purchase, not get the Campus, but wait for the Roams, so that I could do it. And I look back, there was times when I thought, I grew up in the poor side of the tracks, metaphorically, right? I was on we were a middle class family, but on the lower end of middle class. But those struggles actually defined the fact that I'm interested in understanding money. I'm interested in delayed gratification. I'm interested in actually self-funding my own retirement. And those are the parts of the things that define who I am now and why I'm driven for the financial piece that I am. But again, it was the behaviors in those formative years that created the behaviors now for the desires of some of the things that I'm trying to achieve in my own life. And again, I'm like you, thinking about, well, how do I create the experiences for my own children where they do have to peck out of the egg on their own? Our job is to set them up so that when they're independent, they actually can, do their thing in the world. I know we go off on a bit of a tangent, but it's just, these stories are highlighting that it's a behavior game, and why we think that, one of the basic money health, like you go to the doctor and get a health checkup, you're having a money health checkup here. One of those pillars is having a system that games your behavior. Because if you can't game your behavior, you're going to buy the 101st Hot Wheels car.
Now, I mean, we use a lot of medical analogies, and just to close this out, it's the same thing. You hear a lot of people who don't necessarily feel well but put off going to the doctor because they don't really want to know the result. And then because they get to the doctor and maybe the diagnosis is not necessarily, a good one. And so there's a fear in that. So for money, it is a very similar thing. For those people who are aspiring Australians who have a future orientation, we're talking to you, right? But we want you to do the lifting to teach others how to get through that program as well. So the Money Smart system really does bring home this idea of conscious overspending as opposed to unconscious overspending. Like those people who continue to put their heads in the sand, they just probably don't want to know the answer, because they deep down inside, if they're having an honest conversation with themselves, they know that they're not planning for any future. They're not planning for anything more. And so by not knowing, it basically doesn't feel, because money is emotional, right? We know money's emotional. So they're not getting that churning in their stomach and that worry and that anxiety around money. Well, by organizing your money, by getting in control of your money, by making the invisible visible, by then understanding that you're making a conscious decision to overspend. That's a choice, and no judgment there, but it does again come back to the actions that you're taking, the behaviors, the attitudes, the mindset that you're trying to adopt, and that's all encompassing in this Money Smarts money management system. And that's why we're on this crusade, this mission to get more people to use it. That's why it's free to use. That's why we now give away the book, which is the instruction manual to do that. So we'll talk more about that later. But really, from my point of view, it's a passion plea for people to sort of say, you can do better. And even if you think you're okay at it, I promise you that if you take, an hour of your time to just think about this deeply and slowly, you can improve. And then you can start on the optimization story, which is the power of all this, which is money making money for you. And there's no finer thing, because we work hard for our money. But if that money is making more passive income for you, it is a game changer over the length of time.
And you just talked about you can do better. I want people to hold that thought, because that's actually a segue for pillar 2, which I'll get to shortly. But just as we round out pillar 1 with the Money Smarts, for those people, Ben just hinted there, stick around to the end of the podcast. We're going to show you how you can get access to Money Smarts. For those of you that are new to the podcast and you're wondering, okay, well, that sounds all right. How do I do it? We'll show you how you can get access to the book and all the resources for free, so that you can actually implement that. For those of you that have been in the community for some time, we've talked about Money Smarts a lot. We've done episodes specifically on Money Smarts. We'll put some links in the show notes to refresh you. But the idea here wasn't to deep dive in the actual nuts and bolts of Money Smarts, but other than to just give people a framework today for you to do your own money health checkup to work out how you're tracking. And the first pillar is to make sure you have Money Smarts in place, because it allows you to define your number. So you know exactly, if you do Money Smarts well enough, you'll know how much you spend on bills, how much you spend on spending or discretionary lifestyle spend. Add those two numbers together at the end of the year, and that's your number. That's how much your goal is to create a passive income to be able to fund those two numbers for you to not change your life one iota from today. Now, some of you may want to do a few extra things, so you up it a little bit or whatever, but it gives you that clarity around that. And 2, it gives you an understanding of what your surplus is. Here's my money in, here's my money out, and hopefully there's something left over. That's the goal, and that's the surplus. Now, Ben, you said, so challenge people so they can do better. That's our second pillar, and that's really around finding ways to get more surplus. So if Money Smart says that I've got, I don't know, let's throw a number out there, Ben. It says I've got $200 in surplus a month, or 300 or 1,000 or whatever the number is. The second pillar is actually going, all right, let's send your household to the gym and see if we can actually find a way to have an accountability partner that allows us to try and find better. So how would you expand on that, Ben?
Yeah. So, I mean, when the concept of Money Fit came up, that it really is observational at our end as well. And it's through not only many books and research and academia, but it's also through the conversations that we have with the thousands of clients that we work with. And there is a curiosity around peer review. And that's in our DNA. It's in most humans' DNA. And in some cases, it's a good motivator for a lot of people to do better. Whether it be, the rides that they're going on, the 10,000 steps a day and sort of building that gamification piece up. So there can be some really good positive elements of that. It can also work in reverse where, if you're so far away from the high performers, it can be demotivating. So I just want to flag that with people in terms of the reason why we developed the Money Fit analysis tool was just to help you get a gauge of where you sit in terms of your household composition compared to the rest of Australia or compared to the rest of your state. So on our platform, we now have tens of thousands of people using our platform, the My Wealth portal, which is allowing people to be able to do that. And so what we do there is you can go in, put your information in, and so your household composition might be a single person, or it could be as many as, a couple and some kids, 2 or 3 children. Well, then what it does is it says, okay, for those people in that age range, the age range is important here too, because what we also didn't want to do is imagine if you've just come out of university and you're 25 and you're a single, but you've been studying as a doctor. Well, you've got a massive HECS debt. You're basically, yes, you're going to start earning some good income, but in terms of comparing yourself to someone who's been working for 7 years straight out of high school, that is going to be different, right? So we want to sort of say, remember, it's a guide only. It's contextual around your age group, and you can look at the nation, and then you can look at your state, and it's called a histogram. And what actually happens on that is it breaks down the different percentages of people in the different range groups. So you can sort of find out, for an example, if you're a family with 2 children, aged between 35 and 40 in Victoria, it'll tell you based on the income that you select how you sit in an income level, and then it looks at total expenditure. But the one that I'm really interested in, coming back to your point, Bryce, about if you are having discussions internally, husband and wife or couples or whatever you are, in terms of what do we spend on groceries compared to our peers, it's in that state, it's a good idea to take a look. And again, that histogram won't just give one figure, it'll give you a blend of figures. So you'll get to mark yourself exactly where you sit as you hover over that graph. So really helpful. Then you can go down to things like education. You can go down to things like subscription TV. They're all in there, right? In terms of the money that you're paying on each one of those different expense items. So from my point of view, that is just about sort of getting some intelligence, because we all know people don't talk about money. So this is a way, it's a nominalized data. So just remember, there is no name conventions. No one knows who's in there. It's an aggregate total of the anonymized data. Really important to understand that. So, but it's just a nice way in which you can enrich data to allow you to make to have some insights and takeaways around what that story looks like. Now we come back to say again, everyone's individual, but if you're, by way of example, 30% higher on spending across the nation or across your state on groceries, then that's an opportunity to come back and say, all right, challenge yourself on trying to get some more surplus, have a look at what you are spending, where are you shopping, what's the quality of the food that you're buying. We don't want you to go down and buy processed crap. We want you to stay in good, healthy, arrangements of the right 5 food groups and all of those types of things. That's important. But it is just an interesting way to take a look at the insights. And that's why thousands of the people on the platform are effectively using the Money Fit feature once they put their financial information in, and it just gives them some guidance in terms of benchmarking themselves against their peers.
So for putting some context around there, Ben went to the tactical application of, we do have a platform, folks, that allows you to easily benchmark, but the concept is really simple, that for you to be able to find more surplus, part of that is the peer review, the benchmarking against others, and being able to say, well, where do I rank in all of those things that Ben just talked about? Now, we've actually collated that within our platform to make that easier for you. But the point is, the benchmarking is what we're trying to find. And I think Ben's touched on it, but there's a couple of things. I know on average, Ben, for my demographic, I will spend more on groceries than other people probably average, because we buy a lot of organic, and through years and years of testing, I found the best gluten-free bread that doesn't sort of double up as a boat anchor. But but to have the privilege of finding a bread that's gluten-free that actually is nice cost me $9.95 a loaf, right? So, and it's expensive. So we obviously have to be mindful of that in our household, that it's 2 loaves of bread's $20. But so what I would say to folks is in trying to find out how fit you are, to try and find more surplus, which we'll move on to what we do with it in Pillar 4 shortly. But if the goal is to go, well, if I use accountability by looking at my peers to find more, I'm suggesting it's not across every group. It's across groups that actually where you can find it. And so, for example, groceries was obviously the one for me, but you identify a couple of those categories where you just feel like life is all about spending money in that category. Like if you love me, I love going to cafes that have really great whole food, Ben, and that's no mistake. You call it grass, I call it whole food. But I also love taking my boys to a footy match, right? So they're things that I get a lot of joy out of. But I also get a lot of joy out of riding my bike and listening to podcasts and going for a walk with my wife around somewhere I've never been. A lot of free stuff as well. So I can go, well, there's things that I value doing certain things with my family that don't cost much. But there are things that I love doing with my family that do cost it. You know, going to the footy's not cheap anymore. So I'm being really clear. But I don't love spending money on internet service providers. In fact, Ivis would probably prefer that I go and get a satellite dish on the top of my house so we get less issues with me beaming through Zoom. But I want to pay the minimum I possibly can on internet for optimum output. I want to pay the minimum I can for electricity. I want to pay the minimum I can for some of these things that just don't matter. And then be able to maximize on things that I do matter. So it's not a blanket thing of saying scrimp, scrimp, scrimp. It's actually saying be very clear on what brings you joy, which expense categories bring you joy, and all the rest, be just like fastidious and relentless in minimizing those, so that you got a little bit to put towards the things you like doing, but hopefully a percentage of it goes towards the surplus to get into Pillar 4, which we'll chat about.
Oh, look, and so the big ones you'll go after are things like utilities. So whenever there's a mass manufactured good, then you have choice in terms of how you approach that. So your electricity supply, well, it comes through the poles and the wires. So it doesn't sort of matter, you know, and it's reliable because it's got to be fed to everyone in the street. So who your supplier is, who the manufacturer is, and it's like your mortgage, who the manufacturer is, at the end of the day, the debt's the debt. So there's potentially cheaper debt out there. But you also, you know, we've talked about this before around borrowing power and then some other elements when it comes to the mortgage, which means you're controlling more assets and getting a greater return. So it is about building up that, you know, that sort of memory muscle and that money management muscle that we're talking about here, and going after some of these things, because there is plenty of lazy money that is out there. And our crusade is going to be part of helping people find that. And this is that starting point in terms of looking at. So non-negotiable for Bryce and Andrew and the kids is, you know, we buy whole foods and we buy quality. Good. So it's going after some of those other things. And I think that, again, is what we're saying for each household. We're non-judgmental when it comes to, if your entertainment stuff is your passion and your joy and brings you all those experiences, you got to keep doing that. Don't be cutting that stuff back, because that has a direct correlation to happiness, you know, happiness in life. So we want a happy mind is a mind that's not anxious, is healthy mind. It means you're getting the best out of your life. So don't stop doing those things, but it's some of these other things that we can look at. And a little trick that we've done in the bills and spending categories inside the platform is we've organized them into the essential stuff at the top and the discretionary expense items down the bottom. So that's a little clue in terms of where you might be able to find some of that lazy money, and sort of focusing on being more money fit as you start to really work out what's important in your family budget.
I do want to reinforce one of your points, Ben, and I think I don't want it to be lost, that within the groceries, I still want to be fastidious on the discretionary as well. Like, I'm very clear on what's essential and what's discretionary. And despite the fact that I know that my average bill would probably be more expensive than my peers because of the choices that we make around some of the health challenges we have in our family, there are discretionary spend in there. There is absolutely no doubt, and that's always under the microscope. So there you go, folks. Pillar number 1 was having a behavior system in place. We call it Money Smarts. Pillar number 2 was challenging yourself to find some more surplus, or essentially that's being money fit. So Money Smarts, Money Fit. The third one is largely around, Ben, I think it's a what if, right? Because stuff happens all the time. So the third part of money health is being prepared for stuff happening that is out of control, or room for error in some of your judgments, right? So say you, with best intentions, you thought X would actually happen, but it didn't. This is where you want to be able to stretch your money in a what if scenario. So it's basically a hedge against life's inevitable ability to surprise the hell out of you with the worst possible moment. So some examples: a pandemic that wasn't planned, an emergency dental, Ben, a job layoff, just some examples that life throws at you. You want to be able to go, all right, I've actually got a system. I actually have now got myself as fit as I possibly can within that system. But now I want to see if something pops up that is unplanned for, how far I can stretch. So your thoughts and feedback here?
Yeah, I mean, from the technical side of it, and you know, which is where my headspace goes initially through my training, is that we want to see projections and what's possible in our life, right? We talk about making the invisible visible, and you know, we also use the language around I can't be what I can't see. And so when we're talking about wealth creation and making that money work harder for us, we use those forward projections. What we did with Money Stretch is spin that around to also try and encourage people to also address the what ifs, you know, like I've lost this. And by this particular tool inside the platform, what you're able to do is you're able to stress test your level of money in terms of your buffers before it starts to look dangerously low and you have a liquidity challenge, right? So, you know, this is a cash flow tool. It's awesome. And people, you know, some of the feedback we've got on Money Stretch has been really positive around people also, because what you can do with it, right? So inside the platform really quickly, you put your main information in, and then you move across into Money Stretch, and it drags all of that information across. So it's really easy. And then you got your summary of all your expenses. So you can start putting in new expenses, and the calculation will happen instantly. And you can start then dragging the rulers and it moves the calculation. And so all of a sudden, within literally a couple of minutes of being inside the tool, you can start to work out how much comfort I've got, how many months, how many years have I got available before things start getting challenging. And that to us is just another feature of, you know, the program that we're on, and the purpose of why we're trying to put all of these particular features and facilities out there. Now, traditionally, these is very complex. You wouldn't do this in a spreadsheet very easily. People get overwhelmed. We've really dumbed it down, so it's very simple tool to use to be able to move those and run those scenarios. So all of a sudden, you've made some of that invisibility and that uncertainty and that anxiety around whether we can afford this is all gone, because you've been able to stress test it in a really simple and free tool to use inside the platform.
Okay, so we talked about some negative stuff there, Ben. What if negative shocks happen to you? It also helps, you know, the concept at the bigger picture, and then obviously the platform is the tactical application. But the concept of the bigger picture is, how do I actually plan for stuff that I can't see? But also, what about if I plan for stuff that I can see? So if people remember Simon Kustenmacher on our podcast, he was talking about prosperity and the Australian demographics, and he's business partner with Bernard Salt. He actually spoke at our conference this year, and one of the slides that he put up in the slide deck to our team was very, very clear that the people with the highest levels of education obviously enjoy the highest levels of income, right? So there is cause and effect there. Yep. So with that in mind, right, what if someone has a sabbatical, or there's an opportunity for them to actually take a study pass, a leave pass, to go and get more skills so that they can actually come back to their workplace and actually demand a higher level of income, right? So it also allows you to positively plan for things that are front of mind, rather than these things that pop up that these X factor events or whatever, the dentist or the car breaking down or whatever. So it actually allows you to do both sides of the equation to actually get a better sense of how far your money will stretch.
And so it's a good point that you can do side hustles on there. So imagine if you could pick up an extra job for $100 on a Saturday or something along those lines, like on Airtasker, or you go and drive an Uber or whatever it is you do, and you just pick, and all of a sudden you can just see how much it increases the overall wealth and income story and stability in the household, or how quickly you can get to that saving deposit that you need for the home you're buying, or the investment property, or whatever. So it packs a huge amount of punch in a really simple little tool. And so when we built it, it was like, again, why do we build Money Fit and why do we build Money Stretch? It was because observationally, and we get to deal, as I said, with thousands of clients, that these are the things that people are wanting to have answers to, and that's that I can't be what I can't see, so help me understand. And if I understand, I'm going to have more confidence in taking action. And that's another one of what those little fun features and tools do inside the platform.
There you go, folks. So there's Money Smarts, there's Money Fit, there's Money Stretch. They're your 3 of 4 pillars. The fourth one is obviously having a money plan. So you've actually got a behavior management system that allows you to trap surplus. And then once you've trapped the surplus, you then challenge yourself to get Money Fit to see if you can find more surplus. And then you move to the third pillar, which allows you to make sure that you're preparing for a rainy day, essentially, or planning for future positive changes to your income. So the final part is then, okay, well, I've got the surplus. I need to give my money a job. I need to put my money to work, and I need to have a plan around what it is that I want to do with it. So it's around planning for today, but also planning for tomorrow.
Yeah, this is for me, money planning is as important as the wealth creation planning, the plan to become what you plan to become stuff. So this is super critical for the optimization story, because this is a game where people, we call lazy money. There's a couple of ways in which you can refer to lazy money. The first one is just spending, not assessing your bills, picking a new manufacturer and saving some of that cash. But it's also around this story of the optimization. And so you could have your money sitting in a high interest account earning you 1.2%. Is that the best place for your money? Well, that depends on your circumstances. Like ultimately, if you're saving for a home, it might be too risky to put it in the stock market. So we would be careful about sort of, making decisions around how you get better returns. But as you sit down and start to think about those questions, they should be questions that you'll be asking yourself. And then ultimately they should be questions you should be asking your financial advisor, the person that you can trust. That in some cases, a lot of people ask their accountants because they feel safer in working with an accountant in that respect, because they don't feel like they're going to be sold anything. So they are a good sounding board, but traditionally they can be conservative. So you've got to potentially look at what is the information that they're providing you and what your risk profile is. But when you get to all of those types of things, you are putting together a forward vision of your future. And in our case, we've spent a lot of time in teaching people how to engineer an outcome for a retirement. So once you've added in all your future plans, those big rocks in the jar, the items that you're going after, the the changes in income, such as and expenditure, such as babies, such as people leaving home, such as kids starting high school and extra costs, such as one-off special events. Once you start to be thinking about all of those types of things, this is where cash flow management comes to the fore, and then you can really start to accelerate your opportunity to optimize your money. And we think that is in a plan. That is in making sure that you're being very thoughtful, and that plan just shouldn't be the back of a napkin type strategy. It should actually factor in all of the important variables, so you are maximizing that. We've talked about this several times, but those people knew. Imagine if you thought, oh, well, this is great. I've got a good idea. My bank manager's told me that I can buy a $400,000 investment property. And so I go off hunting for a $400,000 investment, none the wiser. Now, imagine if you did the proper work here, and that is that you actually sat down, did all your analysis, put all your future plans in there, and you actually could buy a $450,000 investment property or a $500,000 investment property instead of the $350,000 or $400,000. That is a material difference. Like even if you just roughly said that property prices grow at 6% year on year in Australia, well, you having a $400,000 property starting point and me having a $500,000 property starting point is hundreds of thousands of dollars difference in retirement. So by being lazy on the approach, I then haven't optimized my ultimate return. So that's where doing the effort, putting the effort in terms of understanding that, and then doing the effort in the gap analysis around where you are today to where you want to be. You pull all those things together under a money plan, and all of a sudden you can then start to optimize your money like nothing you've seen before.
Yeah, and it's kind of slightly distinguished from a wealth plan, because the money plan is getting you ready to invest, right? It's having decisions around all of the things you just described, which then says, okay, is your money health in such a place that you can actually contemplate investing, which then turns into a wealth plan, right? So there's a book that you and I have both read. You recommended it to me, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I want to do a couple of quotes from this book because I think they're really important, Ben. And he poses the question about what is your definition of freedom, and his answer is the ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want. That pays the highest dividend that exists in finance. And what I also liked about some of his observations too was with respect to status, because this is where your money health gets is poor sometimes, because if you want your money to be ready to invest, the money health is actually derailed by status. And I liked what he said here. No one is as impressed with your possessions as you are. You may think you want a fancy car or a nice watch, but what you probably want is respect and admiration, and you're more likely to gain those things through kindness and humility than horsepower and chrome. Just let that land, folks. Because if you can actually grasp what he has just said, then that will make a world of difference in your life, because you will then get your money ready for you to be in a place that you can create a wealth plan, which we're not necessarily talking about today. Ben's hinted, but the idea of getting you money ready, your money health, is largely around having these decisions. What's interesting in the book too is how the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses. Do you remember that bit, Ben? Where it's fascinating, right? And it talked about how, we went through the Depression, and then we went through the Second World War. And then obviously when Japan surrendered from the Second World War, all these returning servicemen and women came back to America. The book was American based, but obviously the same is here in Australia. So they came back and they thought, well, what are we going to do? Well, they decided that they were going to create a consumer society where they would spend, and then the spending would create jobs, not too dissimilar to some of the stuff we talked about with the immigration model, Ben, that more people means we create more jobs. So people come back and they'd spend, and the debt, they made sure the debt was really low so that people would be encouraged to borrow. So the amount of household debt, I can't quote the numbers specifically, but there was significant uptake. It looks like a hockey stick, the increase in the debt. And then people were were buying their houses. But what was interesting is people were kind of the same. Like they had the same house, the same opportunities. So the way that they measured their social status post the Second World War was, you and I can have a similar lifestyle. But then we got to the 80s. So that was from the 50s right through to the 80s. And then you get to the 80s where people, there was a few that were actually the Joneses who actually were in a position where they actually did better than most. So they went and bought a 4,000 square foot home, and they went and bought 2 brand new Mercedes and sent their kids to private school. But in the preceding 3 decades, everyone had been saying, well, we can do exactly the same as you because we kind of got the same opportunity. It was in that 80s movement where those people who, the Joneses, could actually afford the big house and the 2 Mercedes and sending them to private school. But the people who couldn't afford it still were so used to, over a few decades, of being able to compare to their neighbor that they thought, well, I've got to keep up. And they're putting themselves under enormous pressure to do that. So hence the term keeping up with the Joneses. So we're trying to suggest to you, if you do play that game, you will derail your money health through that status.
It's like that peer assessment that we were talking about with Money Fit before. It has some good motivators and some good elements to it, but it can also, backfire for some people who feel like it's just unobtainable for them. So you do, coming back to mindset elements here, you do want to believe in yourself and that you can achieve it, but it's not like you want to get there straight away and quickly, because, that wealth will evaporate. The risk that you take will potentially evaporate that as well. So it's steady and slow. And, we've got hundreds of examples in clients that we've worked with and we've seen and reviewed where they're on lower incomes, but their overall net worth is in a better position because that they've focused on themselves. They've been sensible around money management. They've got themselves organized and they're maximizing those returns. Whereas obviously those people who are earning more are spending more on image and status, and that is not resulting in any sort of sustainable savings or sustainable wealth building. And so when they do get to retirement, those folks, they're going to have the shock of their lives, right, in terms of what they're able to achieve versus what they're not. And if they leave it too late, that's when it obviously all starts to get a bit risky, and that's poor execution. I mean, time for us is why we were talking about this and getting everyone started is because the best time to start was yesterday. But outside of that, the best time to start is today. So this is where you get that opportunity to see how you are optimizing your money management and optimizing all those things and changing the behaviors, getting your mindset right, making the invisible visible. Believe what you can see is you, and that can be you, and then you plan to become what you plan to become. And so this money planning element that Bryce is talking about is what works for you might not work for me. It is still a tailored solution for each of us. And I think that's important, but understanding the elements and the components that you need to look at, which is cash flow and spending and provisioning, and all of those things are really essential to fundamental money management.
Yeah, be clear on what spending brings you joy versus what spending is trying to keep up with someone else. Like the summary of that is act your wage, don't act the Joneses' wage.
Correct. And we know 100% of all the research and all of the in-depth analysis is it's experiences, right? So having those experiences and more what you have today, building on those relationships and those experiences will far outweigh having so much money that you don't know what to do with. Just things, right? So it we'll continue with that message, over the journey, because that's exactly what money allows you to do. Allows you to create those experiences which connect to happiness and align to your personal goals, which is everything.
There you have it, folks. The 4 pillars of money health, which make up the grade 4 of the 7 grades of financial wellbeing. Grade 4 being financial stability. Hopefully that's helped you. There was some reinforcing points for some of you that have been in the community. If that's the case, our challenge to you is, okay, I've heard it before, but are you actually implementing it? That's the big question. And for those of you that are new to our community, hopefully that's shed some light on maybe some ahas for you as well, so that you can actually do a health checkup on your own money, so that if you get all those 4 pillars in place, you are getting yourself ready to be in a position where you can move from money planning to wealth planning, where you can actually use the surplus to actually invest in other assets. So there you go, folks. The 4 pillars of money health. Now, we talked about throughout the podcast that if you're wondering how to get access to some of these resources that we're talking about, each and every one of the resources that Ben was talking about was free. If you want to get a copy of our book, Make Money Simple Again, all you need to do is go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au. We go through money smarts. We go through the banking structure. We actually go through the 7 steps that you need to do to implement money smarts. And it actually then became the user guide on how to use the free platform, Ben. So if you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/financial peace, you will actually be able to get access to the platform. Or if you go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au, it's automatically part of the sign-up process there.
And set you up. Yep.
It's and it's completely free. And for those of you, again, who are new to our podcast community, Ben has made on public record on many occasions that Money Smarts is going to be free forever. We're not going to charge for that. So you can go in there with a nickname. You don't have to tell us who your name is, all those sorts of things. And Ben, maybe just tease a little bit on some of the dashboard metrics that we're working on, that we can't go into too much detail, but other than to say the people who are on the platform will be the first to know about some game-changing ways to get a better sense of how you're going moving forward.
Yeah, so today's episode really is about mastering money management and really behavior around money and reinforcing those messages. Where we're going to is around this next stage in terms of being able to build out. So if you think about it from our 7 grades of financial wealth, what we're talking about here is you should start at financial consciousness. Then we're doing the money management, which is financial stability. And then we've obviously got financial control. Now, financial consciousness is stage 1 of that is absolutely about money management. But stage 2 about that is actually about where you want to go and sort of understanding, how you're tracking towards that journey. And again, there's a lot of apps out there that just allow you to track your spending, but that doesn't make a material difference in terms of behavioral change. So we're working on some conceptual secret sources that we'll be releasing hopefully in the second half of this year, which really bring home some metrics, some really super cool metrics that are absolutely me or my household in terms of hopefully moving the dial. Because this is the mission that we're on. This is the crusade that we're on in terms of if you can understand where you see yourself right now and where you want to go, we think that will be an encouraging application and tool that we can add to the platform to allow you to get there. So it's going to be super exciting. We're also building it into an app. So it will be a mobile native app as well. So there is a lot of exciting things happening in the background, which we're building for our clients, but we're also building it for our community, which is you guys. So we're really excited about where that's going to take us. I think it's going to be a novel, interesting way, and I think it'll have a lot of curiosity attached to it. And I can't wait for people just to go, I want to know what my wealth is, and I want to know how that works in this moment. And then so that, I'm obviously, drowning those out because I don't want to give away the secret sauce. But once we put it all together, it's just going to be super, super cool.
Super cool. And folks, just for the record, we've actually been building these tools to help us personally. So Ben and Bryce, right? We use them. So we needed to know how to be money fit. We needed to know how to have money stretch for our own households. So therefore, it just becomes an extension of what is required within our own best practices, so that you can follow the system as well. So it's kind of not just this theory that you can use. It's actually what we're using. We use it every day.
Yep. Check in every month. Yep.
and it allows us to stay within financial peace on our own households. And therefore so I just wanted to reinforce that, Ben, that it's not just this mythical thing that's out. Like, we built the tools for you and me so that we could apply it for you and me, but it just happens to be universally applicable for everyone.
And in terms of, if you think about where digitized money and all that's going, and some of these applications and with technology and machine learning and AI, we have a roadmap to help our community, and we are going to continue to keep striving towards helping you help yourself. At the end of the day, you're the hero in this journey, not us. You're the ones that need to take action, but we want to pay it forward. And so we're going to build some of the most funkiest, awesome applications. And, effectively, imagine one day your money on autopilot. I'll just put that teaser out there. That's where ultimately we want to go. So it's an exciting thing for us to be able to be in a position to do that for our community. And we're going to continue to keep working on that to serve everyone in the community as best we can.
Very good, Ben. So I don't think anyone's going to be surprised with my life hack today, Ben. I want you to go to www.makemoneysimpleagain.com.au. It's free. The book is free. You can go in anonymous, and you can actually get on top of this stuff. And you don't have to ever have met us. You don't ever have to have come into our business, and it will make a meaningful difference to your life. So makemoneysimpleagain.com.au. I challenge you, for those of you who heard this message a couple of times and haven't acted, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. So I'm speaking directly to you to go to that website. If you're new and it's the first time you're hearing this message, I'm certainly going to encourage you to go over there and get access to it. Hey, Ben, what's making property news?
There's one fun fact, but I'll go into the sort of more formal stuff. Surprise, surprise, Bryce, building approvals continue to climb. So the data's that come out for March, 17.4% jump, very much helped by the home builder program scheme. So your submissions have now closed off for that, but we'll still potentially see a little bit more of a spike. You've got up until April to get that approved, and you've got up until September of 2022 to start building. So it gives you a bit more room in that. Total building approvals are now at the second highest level on record, exceeding only November of 2017. In terms of 63.6% surge in approvals for private multiple density dwellings. So this is interesting, right? This is apartments and townhouses. But what's interesting about this isn't the medium and high density stuff. This is basically splitter blocks and 1 into 3s and, sort of smaller density stuff out in the burbs is where it's happening. So that's in, led by New South Wales and Victoria. So overall private sector house approvals edged to a new record high and are now 60.9% higher over a 12-month period. So there you go. So there's going to be a mini building boom that's going to be happening, but it just won't be building our bigger cities. It'll be basically out in the burbs. So that's interesting. The other one that we stumbled across, and thanks, Bryce, for sharing this one. This one's a really cool one. Talk about, Melbourne, Australia, Sydney, unaffordable property prices. It's absolutely ridiculous how much we have to pay for property. Here we go. Everyone's going to go, you're going to use the New York and you're going to use the the Paris, and you're going to use the London story. Yeah. No, we're going to Seoul. Okay, so let's have a look at the story for Seoul. The average Seoul apartment in South Korea will currently cost you around 1.3 million Bryce dollars. In comparison to the median unit price in Sydney, which is our most expensive unit market in Australia, is 755,000. So, and the average house price in Australia is now $624,997, thanks to our good friends at CoreLogic. So Seoul, there's a suburb in Seoul, and this article is, we'll put it in the show notes, but it's come from the ABC in terms of their online articles. Seoul suburb of Gangnam has the highest price, with apartments averaging 1.65 million.
Is that where Gangnam Style comes from, Ben?
Maybe it was a suburban dance that got out into the world, mate. A bit of Gangnam Style, right? And the most expensive apartment complex in Korea, in Seoul, is the Hanam, the Hill. And it's the home of K-pop band BTS, where units cost...
How much, Ben?
Just a lazy, just just a lazy $8.5 million price. $8.5 million. So there you go, folks. So property price is expensive in downtown Melbourne, downtown Sydney, not when you compare them against the unit prices in downtown Seoul. So good little context, putting everything into perspective. We've said this before. Mega cities do bring mega prices. And that's another great example.
You can feel the audible relief of all the listeners right now being going, oh, that makes me feel better. Oh, I can't get into the market and I've missed
my
$355,000
property unit is now great value.
Very good. Shout out to those folks who are going through the torment right now of trying to get into the market and missing out. So we're not trying to make light of that. That is real pain. So good luck this weekend if you are one of those people trying to get into the market. But Ben, it's been fun. The 4 pillars of money health, which make up one of our grades of financial wellbeing, which was grade 4, financial stability. So folks, until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it. Go and get that book, everyone. Go and get it. MakeMoneySimpleAgain.com.au.
Well said. See you next week, folks.
Hey there, folks. Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listened to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now, for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarizes the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D, and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.